I struggle with the title photographer. Reason being, it's used too much and it means too many different things. And if it means too many different things, it might just lose meaning when you just say photographer. I also struggle with the title artist. Sure, something I do will be art, but not everything I do is art, and art isn't the intention of everything I do. I'm Nicholas Thorley. I'm going to answer some questions about my photography. So after spending a couple of years overseas, I came back home without any clear, solid career path, and I was interested in self-employment, and I thought photography would be a good way to explore that. And when I came back home to Melbourne, Australia, and just said, that's it, this is what I do now. So I needed to learn everything I could, to photograph everything I could, and actually it swept over me like an obsession. Now it's very hard to crack into now, and it was probably almost as hard to crack into back then. I got frustrated, got impatient. I actually remember I got out the Yellow Pages, which was a huge paper printed business directory from back in the olden days, and I looked up photographers in the index and just started calling all of them. And I kept calling them until I had work, and I got some assisting work. I built into a small income. I learnt from them. I ended up getting subcontracted work from them, and after that I moved into building my own brand. There was a lot of corporate portraits, weddings, family photos. I did that for 6 to 7 years. Well, my latest project was setting up this darkroom, and next I'll just be getting to know this buddy of mine over here really well and locking down a nice solid process so I can enjoy the fruits of consistently good productivity. So right now I'm more printing focused than photography focused. Would you forgive an estimate? I think it was 2011. After having completed the diploma of photo imaging, I filled in for the technician who was taking long service leave. He then went on to retire, and I had a foot in the door. So my role, I call myself a problem solver. Whether it be hanging an exhibition, or a student doing an assignment in the studio, or someone doing some analog printing, or even someone fighting with computers. I like being that go-to guy that knows a different way to do something or has a solution to a problem. I also maintain the equipment, the classrooms, and stock up the consumables. Well, in thinking about that, I came to realize the common denominator between them is that they're amazingly driven people and just relentless people, more so than myself. High on the list would be Richard Avedon, for the way he renders the personality and the grittiness of the people he seeks out. Much of the later development of my photography came from Ansel Adams. I took on his diligence of the exactness. It's not just the maths and the recipes and the measuring of the chemistry and that, but it's the mindset of having the determination that you're pre-visualizing everything you're going to create in your image, and there's no surprises. Everything's intended and deliberate. That's what I want to take from Ansel Adams, and that's what I want to see in my pictures. Also, Mapplethorpe, he gets a big mention for looking for beauty in things that not everybody is used to looking for beauty in. I think you can use photography to challenge other people's perception of beauty, but while doing so, you should be challenging your own. And that's the exploration of image making. You know, it's probably not the pictures that I make. It's probably more when there's a graduation exhibition and I see a tiny little piece of myself in everyone else's pictures. If I've suggested some lighting or contributed in some way to a student's work and it looks great on the wall, and that's their springboard into being a photographer when they graduate, that actually feels better than making my own images. Challenge. I would just want my work to challenge the way they would ordinarily feel looking at a subject matter. I want something you'd usually think is beautiful to look coarse and gritty, or something usually unwanted to now look beautiful and desirable. I just want contrast. I want challenge. Too much equipment is what equipment I use. So for me, digital photography is a tool for doing a job, and analog photography is the craft of image making. That's just how I enjoy it. I'm not saying that's how it should be. So for recording an image, I have many formats of camera. I have 8x10, 5x4, medium format, and 35mm. They used to call it small format. I have some 35mm. What I don't have is a pinhole camera. I gave it away. I developed my photography backwards. At the start, all I wanted to do was color digital. Now, all I want to do is analog black and white. I guess I want the end results of my photographs to be a production of my efforts, something physical I can hold. And something where a process makes it different to what the eye sees. And I take a reward from that for some reason. Put 95% of your effort into working on your eye. What you see, what you can observe, what you can appreciate.